Hello, fellow Sony shooter, it's Magic here. So in this video, I'm gonna give you a quick guide like how to use Sony cameras for wedding photography, like what is the crucial settings. In my opinion, it's gonna be like top 6 crucial settings for wedding photographers using modern Sony cameras. So number 1, if you shoot weddings, you have to use the dual card feature of your camera. You need to record RAW files on both of your cards. You don't want to be that person that has to tell their couple that, oh, sorry, your photos are gone because I had a memory card malfunction. And I don't care if you have been shooting like 10 years and haven't had like a single memory card failure. It can happen no matter how careful you are. It's just electronics. They can just simply die and stop working. So please record a backup always on a second memory card of your camera. And since like modern Sony cameras like Sony a7 IV, Sony a7R5 are equipped with like the faster memory cards, both slots are faster, I strongly recommend actually using 2 of the same type of the cards. And my recommendation is medium speed. You don't need like the fastest, but don't go for the slowest. You don't go for these SanDisks that like the black typical SanDisks, because it's just a pain, to constantly wait for your camera to buffer or to copy files. Use like medium speed. So my go-to cards are these TAF cards, Sony Type M, which is not the fastest G. It's just fast enough to have like really great fast action. I have a video like walking through all the types of the memory cards for Sony a7 IV. So if you want to go like and dig deeper, check this out. Okay, point 2, since now you're using mirrorless camera, make sure you're exposing correctly. There's no need to underexpose. There is no possibility for errors to overexpose, because all the time what you see in viewfinder, you see on the screen is exactly what you're gonna get. So make sure to expose correctly, so whatever you see in your viewfinder is what you want to deliver. Make sure to adjust the white balance to the scene that you're shooting, because if you're gonna nail the exposure and if you're gonna nail the white balance, your editing is gonna be way faster, because all of the images are gonna be ready. It's just like one click, like with my presets, Magic Tabra, you can check them out in the description. Just one click and the photos are done because I exposed them correctly. And then I keep my white balance like warmer, because this is how I like to deliver my images. And also now you don't have to have like auto review for your photos. So you don't have to review your photos after taking them. So you don't waste your time on shooting and then, oh, it's a nice picture, and then your couple is like kissing in front of you and you're like looking at the screen. There's no need for that. Now you can constantly look through your viewfinder or through the screen, and like whatever you see, you click, this is going to be the picture. You don't have to review them in most of the cases. And the way I personally shoot, this is something that has changed over the years. I used to be a manual boy, so I used to use a manual mode for everything, so manual shutter speed, manual ISO, manual f-stop, but these times are gone. Now I'm shooting aperture priority and auto ISO, and this is my recommendation for you guys because it's just the easiest way to shoot. The way I set up my camera now is I set my mode dial to A, which is aperture priority, so I use a ring on my lens to control aperture. You can also use the dial. And then I set ISO to auto. I use the range between ISO 100 and ISO 12800. And now, when I control my aperture, the camera controls ISO and shutter speed. And there's one crucial setting in order to get this working well for you, is the minimal shutter speed for ISO auto. So the shutter speed that your camera won't go below. So in order to change that, you go to ISO settings and there's a minimal shutter speed for ISO auto. I keep it usually at 1:250. Sometimes I go to 1:500 if my scene is like kind of a faster action scene. The only time I go to manual mode is when I'm shooting flash photography. Then obviously I'm just adjusting like everything manually. I use manual camera and manual flash. If you want to learn more about that, I have a full Flash Magic online course on how I use a single flash for wedding photography. Okay, number 3, and this one is crazy important, is the autofocus settings. So there's a lot of options. And I have like a full video when I walk through every possible option and the focus area option. So you can check this out if you want to go deep. But basically you need to have control on what are you focusing on, all right? This is crucial. You need to have control. So my go-to setting is a tracking. So I use tracking autofocus. So it means that whatever I will focus on, the camera will track across whole frame. So if I decide to focus on the bride, my camera will just focus on the bride wherever she goes on the frame. So in order to set this up, first of all, you need to set your camera to AFC, which is autofocus continuous. And now you have to use the tracking, which is the one that down below on the list of focus areas is the lowest one, tracking. And now you need to choose by going left and right, how do you want to lock focus on something? So how do you want to acquire focus on something in order to track that something that you're focusing on? It's quite complicated, but when you get a good grip on this and you'll understand how it works, it's going to be super easy and super comfortable. So the way I use it is I use the small spot. So I go tracking left and right, and I choose spot S. This is a small point, and I use my joystick to move that point across the screen, and whenever I want to focus on something, I will just move my point on that thing or a person and half press a shutter, and then the camera will start tracking that something across whole frame. So now if I'm half pressing, my point doesn't matter anymore because I already locked the subject. So that point is only used to lock the subject, like pre-half pressing, all right? So if you want to use like a bigger point, you can do that, or you can use a zone too. So you can use a zone to select the portion of the frame that will be used to acquire the initial subject. But as soon as you acquire the subject, that zone doesn't matter anymore because now the camera is focusing, across the whole frame. The smaller the point is, like the more precise you can be with selecting the subject that you want to lock on, but also the more time you need to go, for one side of the frame, let's say, to the other side of the frame to focus on specific subjects. So it's up to you which area you will use to lock on, but make sure you use tracking, so you're kind of tracking a specific subject. And then there's one more crucial option regarding the whole tracking, which is the tracking sensitivity. So if you go to the menu, there's a tracking sensitivity option, and it goes from 1 to 5. 1 is lock on, 5 is responsive. And what it does is this is how you control how sticky your kind of autofocus you want to be. So if you want to lock on, and you will lock on some face, and there's going to be another person maybe coming in front of that face, the camera will try to keep your initial subject, locked on as much as it can. If you go responsive, it might quicker switch to a new subject like that is coming in front of your initial subject. My recommendation for wedding photography, you usually want to lock on something, so I would recommend either sticking with 3, which is like the kind of balanced, or going all the way to 1, which is locked on. One more autofocus setting that might be helpful shooting weddings, specifically dance floor stuff with higher f-stop, is the aperture drive. Make sure to switch it to focus priority. So this way, if you're shooting high f-stops, the autofocus is just going to perform better under, dark scenario. Whew, that was a big one. And I think we need a break. So this break is going to be sponsored by PicTime. So if you are a wedding photographer and you're not using PicTime, I don't know what you're doing, because PicTime is just one tool to rule them all. First of all, it's a gallery provider. Like, you can create beautiful galleries for your clients to select, like, and download the photos. Then you can attach a store to it that is going to be like international store. So my clients from all over the world can order the prints without me doing anything else than setting this up and approving the orders. But then the orders just go straight to the clients, and I just see the profit on my PayPal. And then that's still not all, because they have built-in marketing campaigns, which makes it even easier to get like prints for your couples and their parents and their families. So for example, they have like a pre-made Valentine offer for all of your clients that will just gonna go off automatically. If you want, you can go deep. If you don't want, you can just use their copy, use the default setup, and you're still gonna sell. And then Still not all, still not all. You have slideshow tool inside QuickTime. So when you load your gallery, you can just select your images, select a song, and make a slideshow. And this is the way I deliver my photos to make initial impression for my clients. The first thing that they see in their gallery is the beautiful slideshow. Like, it creates tears. Just people just cry. And the tears, these are the tears of joy and happiness and like being just happy with the photos. Trust me, you want those tears. And then the last but not least, they're introducing this month a new feature, which is blogs. So now you can also select the images from the gallery and make a beautiful blog out of it. You can select a layout, you can select a color palette, and then you just copy the code and paste it onto your website. Ta-da! And now their blog is on your website. It's crazy how many different tools QuickTime has, and it is specifically for wedding family photographers. So if you're not using them, make sure to check out the free trial. You have like full month like of all the features, and then with code MAGIC, you get extra month, and I promise it's gonna be worth it. All right, let's get back to Sony cameras. So point number 4 is a silent shutter. So unless you are shooting Sony A1 or Sony A9, I would recommend to be really careful with silent shooting, because all the other cameras might get you ugly banding effect under artificial light, which is very hard to get rid of in Photoshop. So you get these like black stripes across the frame horizontally. It's crazy. And if you find yourself, having like a couple hundred photos from church or some indoor situation at the wedding with those stripes, you're gonna have a problem. So my recommendation, just either don't use it or be very careful about it and review the photos if you are using silent shutter. So check a photo if it does come with the banding. Maybe try lowering your shutter speed. If you need to shoot silent, maybe there's a requirement not to make any noises, then there's no choice. You have to use silent. So then just keep lower shutter speeds in order to get out with the images that are good, but then make sure to review the photos. Point number 5. Customize, customize, customize. Sony cameras these days are extremely customizable. You can basically set most of the buttons on the camera and get like most of the features just out of the menu into the buttons on your camera. And then you can also have a quick menu under the FN button, and also you can have your own custom menu. So my recommendation is whatever settings you find yourself going into the menu all the time to change, just move them into your menu of favorites. So in my case, the first one is the date and time, because like every week when shooting 2 cameras, I'm synchronizing the time in those 2 cameras, so I have to have like quick access to the date and time. Then I have format cards, because I format all of my memory cards in the camera, so I don't want to look for that in the menu. I just have it here. And there's a couple more of these settings, like AF tracking sensitivity that I just talked about, so I can switch from lock on to responsive quickly if I want, auto review. And then there's like a couple of these let's say YouTube features for me, because I'm testing different lenses, so I have to have access to lens compensation and stuff like that. So make sure it's you. So whatever you need and you find yourself changing all the time, just move it to your menu. It's just so simple. And then with the buttons, I reprogrammed most of them. So I have like minimum shutter speed for the auto ISO that I just talked about, programmed into AEL button. So whenever I want to change from 1/250 to 1/500, I can do it really quickly. On C1, I have a zoom in when using manual focus lenses in order to make sure I'm focusing correctly. The record button, since I'm not using my A7 IVs to record anything, I just use a record button as my white balance button. C3, I use changing the eye for the eye tracking. And then a couple more. I actually going to be preparing a full guide for my newsletter subscribers, so you can sign up for the newsletter if you want to know what I'm personally using. But my recommendation is use whatever you need, because this is the best way of using the camera. Make it tailored to you, like whatever your most accessed features are. And then you can do the same with the FN button, so you can use the quick menu function. And the last but not least, whatever you set up as your go-to for shooting weddings. So let's say you followed my video and you set up dual RAW recording into 2 slots. You set up your autofocus settings. You set up, auto review off and stuff like that in your camera. Now you can take all these settings and save them into a custom mode dial setting. So 1, 2, 3, these three numbers on the dial here can have all the features that we just set up saved into one thing. So now, for example, if you are using your camera on a weekdays to shoot your kids and you're not using RAW files, you can switch to JPEGs. But then when you're shooting weddings on a weekend, you don't want to think about what else you have to change or switch back to your wedding mode. You can just go with your dial to number 1, which is going to be your desired wedding settings. And this way, there is no way you're going to make a mistake of shooting JPEGs or not having dual RAW or stuff like that set up in your camera. And this is a game changer. So in order to set this up, you're like, after setting up all cameras, so whatever you have set up, aperture priority, minimum shutter speed, again, like whatever your settings are, now go to the menu, shooting mode, and then there's this MR camera set memory. You choose dial 1, 2, or 3 using your joystick and just press center button to confirm, and bam, you are ready to go. You have everything set up. Hope this video was helpful. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know down in the comments if there's something I missed. I always learn just like you. Thanks so much again. I see you guys in the next video.